Hi there everyone and welcome to the Athletic HQ here in London. It is transfer deadline day and we have less than 3 hours to go until the window closes, 7 p.m. in the UK, and we have a stellar cast alongside me. I'm Adam Leventhal from The Athletic, of course. As you can see, we have David Ornstein sat there, smiling through the tears.
Trying to look calm.
Calm, collected.
Baying for 7 p.m. Not forgetting deal sheet territory.
There's stuff going on though, isn't there? And we're going to get stuck into it. Bits and bobs, I like it. James Horncastle, our Serie A expert, is here. There's been bits and bobs going on, and that's why we've had to sort of slightly delay this stream, because it was all kicking off, wasn't it?
I think Serie A has been driving a lot of deadline day chatter and interest. So yeah, we'll get into that.
It's perfect. And JJ Bull is here to give us the tactical analysis as well on signings
that haven't happened.
Have
collapsed.
That will collapse. But also, seriously, the knock-on effect of that, which is always sometimes as fascinating as the deals going through themselves.
Yes. Is it though? It would be better if they moved. I think we'd have more.
Well, it's still a subplot, isn't it?
Yes. And we will analyse all the subplots.
We will indeed. Let's start off by telling you to get your questions in. That would be great. You can stick them in the comments and we will try and feed them in throughout the show as best as possible. Producer Ruben is here, sat behind the cameras, and he is going to throw the questions to me and we will get them up as quickly as possible. It may well be that David leaves us at some point. You know the drill. He's got stuff to do. It's nothing personal. No, that's quite right. Let's deal with some of the news that has broken over the last sort of hour or so. David, bring us up to speed with what happened with Jean-Philippe Mateta and his potential transfer to AC Milan, because it's not happening now.
Yeah, it was very much a deal that was in motion because the clubs had reached an agreement in principle worth in excess of 30 million euros. Jean-Philippe Mateta has been keen to exit, to go to what is understood he feels to be a higher level, so Champions League football with Juventus was a possibility some weeks ago. They veered away from it. Then AC Milan came back as a contender. Nottingham Forest, European football there too. He has European football at Selhurst Park. So that was the sort of backdrop to it. But yeah, AC Milan accelerated, reached that agreement, and personal terms with him would be no problem. And so we revealed on deadline day eve, is that even a thing, yesterday?
Yep.
More commonly known, that he would be undergoing a medical. Those medical checks started on behalf of AC Milan and they continued into today, which took place in physical form in London. And whatever's happened as a result of those medical checks, we know he's had some knee problems. Oliver Glasner has spoken about it publicly. They have decided not to go ahead with the deal. They've pulled out. And so naturally he goes back to Crystal Palace, technically speaking. There is still some interest from other clubs in a potential loan before the deadline. There are some reports that he may need to undergo surgery. As far as we know, conversations continue over whether that will be necessary or not. He's got a World Cup to think about, which may encourage surgery to get back in time for that. It may encourage no surgery to try and get through until after the tournament if he's to be selected by France. So it's a bit of a messy situation. At the same time, Crystal Palace have been pursuing the signing of Jørgen Strand Larsen from Wolves. As far as we know, that is still going ahead. A deal worth £43 million plus £5 million in add-ons. He has completed a medical, agreed personal terms on a long-term contract, and that appears to still be on. So we'll wait and see if anything can be revived in terms of Mateta. If it's not, does Strand Larsen get completed? That is the situation at the moment. But have you
heard anything since the Mateta news that there are now thoughts that it might not go through?
No.
Fine.
Every check I've made suggests that why do I keep confusing them? It's been a long month. That Jørgen Strand Larsen is proceeding. Nothing to suggest it isn't yet. Until it's signed, you obviously don't know for sure. And it would appear to create some congestion in that part of the pitch. But of course, financially, Palace have managed things quite well with the Mark Gahey departure, and they're in a decent PSR position as far as we know. So perhaps they can carry both. Obviously, the Strand Larsen idea was on the premise of Mateta departing, and we're not sure if that's going to happen at this moment in time.
Yeah, lots of people asking on the chat. Kickaboo 6674 has just asked about Strand Larsen. It'll be interesting to watch that over the next few hours and see if Palace actually go, oh, what are we doing here? Why we're going to have two guys and we don't necessarily need both. That was the whole point of bringing him in. From the Italian side of things, this deal not going through, I mean, tell us as much as you can as to why you think this deal has not gone through, and also how much it's going to impact AC Milan, because they wanted him, they needed him. They were willing to splash some money as well.
They were. I mean, why didn't this go through? We've talked about the medical checks, but we have also talked about the price, which is in excess of 30 million for a player who's 28.
Yeah. And
I think you have to be absolutely sure that player can perform to the level that you expect him to for that price at that age. I think from AC Milan's perspective, this was an extra. It was not essential. Why do I say that? Because, they already signed a striker in January. They signed the striker from West Ham, Nicholas Füllkrug. Now, Füllkrug has quickly become a fan favourite, in part because he's gap-toothed, and they like that in Milan. And he seems very simpatico, as they say. They like him. But the move from West Ham is a loan with an option. And so if Milan get to the summer and they're not convinced by Füllkrug, then they'll have to go in for another striker. Santi Jimenez, another player that they signed this time last year, great expense from Feyenoord. Santi Jimenez, his future was already in doubt in the summer. Through the winter, he's had surgery. He's currently unavailable. So going into the summer, question marks about whether he has a long-term future at AC Milan. Similarly with Christopher Nkunku. Nkunku arrived late in last summer's transfer window for a fee that you wouldn't expect this AC Milan to pay, in excess of 40 million. And Nkunku so far, even though he's shown signs of life over the last few weeks, has not convinced. And so the way this was presented to me, Milan's interest in Mateta, it was first, let's sign him now and loan him back to Palace. And then it was a case of, if we do that, we might as well just take him anyway. But it was very much initially conceived as, let's solve this striker situation that we're going to have in the summer now. So we're not scrambling around for a striker next summer like we were last summer. And so that's why I say that Mateta in January for Milan was always kind of seen as extra rather than essential.
Just to answer a couple of the questions that are coming in, because people are asking about Tottenham, just to let you know, we are going to be talking about Arsenal in a minute, so do stay tuned for that. But it made me think about Mateta not going through, and there was talk of him potentially going to Juventus as well. And there was also talk of Kolo Muani leaving Tottenham, just to give a nod to the guys that have asked about Tottenham, them trying to sign Kolo Muani, Juventus trying to sign Kolo Muani. Is there anything still bubbling with that, or is Kolo Muani staying put and Mateta's not going to end up at Juventus, for example, at the last minute?
I mean, Juventus' approach to this winter market is conditioned by two things. One, change of coach. They sacked Igor Tudor, brought in Luciano Spalletti. Second, the injury to Dusan Vlahovic, who's been out now for I think 6 weeks. So there was a feeling that they needed a striker for the second half of the season, particularly with Jonathan David initially kind of struggling. Now, David has started to perform really well under Luciano Spalletti. In fact, Spalletti, since he's been at Juventus have the second best attack in the league. But when it came to looking at someone who could fill the gap left by Dusan Vlahovic, priority has always been Randal Kolo Muani. Why? Because this time last year, they took Randal Kolo Muani on loan from PSG. And they felt that Kolo Muani did well enough at Juventus in order to stay. Problem was that they couldn't do a deal with PSG in the summer. And the way PSG looked at it was like, you can't take him on loan again for the following season. You've tried him, now you buy him. And Juventus could not afford to buy him in the summer. And that ultimately is why Kolumwani, I think, joined Spurs quite late in the transfer window last summer, because the expectation was Juventus would find a way in the end to do that deal, and they didn't. And so he's always been in their thoughts, but it's always been, as David well knows, it's been in Tottenham's control. It would depend really on whether Tottenham decided to terminate that loan, and so far they have not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll watch that space over the next couple of hours. I just wanted to quickly get a take from you, JJ, rather than you just sat there sort of looking at my back of my head and these guys as well.
Yes.
If it ends up that you have Strand Larsen and Mateta both at Crystal Palace, what do you do with that?
You would mostly play one or the other, but they don't really have any other options that are similar to Mateta at all. So he's had to play basically every single game. And like you say, there's some noise about an injury that he's been carrying the whole time. And so he's also not performing as well as you'd want him to, especially in terms of taking his chances, specifically that actually. So a couple of years ago, he was scoring way over his expected goals. Mm-hmm. Last season, I think he was round about level, which is kind of what you want for consistency, really. And this season, he's massively under. He's generated more XG this season than he had 2 seasons ago. When by the end of the season, he scored like 15 goals, and this season he scored about 5, something like that.
And 1 in 10 he scored.
Something. I can't remember the exact numbers, and I could look them up on my computer, but I'm not going to do that.
Mateta, right?
I'm going to live on the edge. Yes, Mateta.
Yes, 1 in 10, 1 in 12, all competitions.
There we go. Right, but for me, it's more that he's missing his chances generated, so that he's getting lots of 1v1 chances, which is what good strikers do, but he's not being clinical with them, and so you can't continue to have that. And the argument would be that if you have someone as a competition, he might be sharper or something like that, and you can also give him a rest so he's not mentally fatigued. He can be physically and mentally fatigued. And Strand Larsen would give you different options. I think Strand Larsen is probably better at receiving deeper as well. Mateta is good at running in behind. He drops in and does link play, but I'd say from what I've watched of both of them, I think Strand Larsen's probably the better player at linking play when dropping deep. So you have kind of options there. If you want to play 2 Strand Larsen, you could do that. It's not inconceivable you could play them both, but you'd have to play 2, and then you're changing the way your system works. And I don't think Glasner would do that unless he shifted to a back 4. But yeah, I think it's mostly just to help your squad play. They've got so many games. If you're playing, they've got Conference League. Yeah. And Premier League all the time, it's very tiring.
It helps in rotation, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
John Beaton has asked, any news on Aberdeen? JJ, we've run out of time on that. David, I wanted to just quickly, before we get to Arsenal, because I know a lot of people watching want to know about Arsenal. A lot of people are asking about whether Mateta could end up anywhere else in this next couple of hours. I know we've talked about Italy. Forest were obviously into him. The beef between Crystal Palace and Forest would seem to me like, come on, that's not going to happen late on. People have been saying Man United and things like that. Are you hearing anything other than him just staying put now?
I think Manchester United's been the most historically linked and rumoured team with him, but nothing in relation to them. Nottingham Forest made a £35 million offer, which we revealed on The Athletic a few days or within the last couple of weeks. And clearly it was a move that Mateta would have been open to embarking upon until AC Milan really showed their hand and he favoured that. I also think, given the beef, as you describe it, between the two clubs, it would have never been in Crystal Palace's interest to sell to Nottingham Forest, despite being 28 and out of contract in the summer of 2027. They're sort of rivals at this point in the season. I think there's a bit of anxiety at Crystal Palace about a potential relegation scrap, which I don't share. I think they're going to be fine. And then there's the background of the European angst between the two of them. In terms of others, Juventus looked into the situation. I don't know of them taking it any further at this moment in time. So wherever this potential loan interest is coming from, we don't have names right now. I don't know. Well, I'm told that Nottingham Forest aren't pursuing it anymore. They also looked into Taremi, didn't they? But I think Olympiacos have suffered an injury, so he's going to be staying there. So I don't know if there's more activity in the next couple of hours for Forest. But when I last spoke to people around the club, they suggested the left-back that we've reported from Germany, Netz. I nearly forgot his name and then thought of goal netting and reminded myself. So that they're going to just sign him as a left-back. There's an agreement reached with Borussia Mönchengladbach. He's undergoing a medical before, hopefully for them, signing a 4.5-year contract. And therefore, I think the Mateta and striker ship may have sailed. They obviously did recruit Lorenzo Luca from Napoli.
Pizza Crouch.
Well, the Peter Crouch of Pizza Crouch. Sorry. Yeah, you're making me hungry now. Ours is arriving shortly. And so it would appear that Mateta is most likely at this point in time to stay at Palace.
Question in. Samuel Basmadjian has said, latest about Tonali, David.
Mm-hmm.
Latest about Tonali. Come on, let's go.
Well, Arsenal have been interested in him historically. I think we've reported that before on The Athletic. There was a report this morning by Florian Plettenberg from Sky Italy saying that they were working on a deal before this deadline. Naturally, you make your checks on that sort of thing. And I think in our live blog, it's being reported now that we understand that what's happened here is Tonali was offered to Arsenal by his agent. And Arsenal, in turn, Andrea Berta, their sporting director, as is his job to do with any players of interest, explored it, looked into the situation, and it became abundantly clear that nothing would be possible. There's been no contact, to our knowledge, between Arsenal and Newcastle United. So this is purely a situation between the agent and Arsenal. Even if Newcastle were open to doing something now, which they are not, the price would be out of Arsenal's reach and capabilities. And therefore, the door has closed. Nothing's happening with Tonali. And whether something happens subsequently in the summer, I don't know. He's got a long contract, and Newcastle are intending to keep him.
Do you think that people were putting two and two together, considering what Mikel Arteta had said, that they were actively looking for options even on this deadline day, which isn't necessarily what you would expect sometimes from an Arsenal manager who's now pretty much got his full deck available to him? I know that there's the Merino injury, which had obviously, fanned those flames. Do you think people were thinking, oh, well, this might actually happen, but it was actually just an agent-led thing?
Well, the reports came out, and this agent offer to Arsenal was before Mikel Arteta spoke. That was probably in recent days, the opportunity, and it now emerged publicly. Arteta speaking there is not referring to Tonali.
No.
It's referring to, you never know before a deadline window shuts and a deadline comes, of the opportunities that might arise. My understanding is that Arsenal are doing nothing before the deadline. Famous last words as they go and sign. Who was it in the past? Announced Benzema. Not that ship's definitely sailed. No, I don't think they're doing anything. What Arteta's doing there is just stating the obvious. Like, if something comes up, we might look to do it. If it doesn't, we'll carry on with what they've got. I've said throughout this month I don't expect Arsenal to bring any players in because they've recruited so heavily and so well in the previous summer. It gives them strength, it gives them depth. They're competing for 4 trophies. And they look pretty well set, even despite injuries. In the absence of an obvious replacement for Merino, because they did scour the market and they didn't find anything suitable, they do have existing options that they can play in that position. They're not like for like, but they can deputise. And, Arteta may have just been sort of keeping us entertained on deadline day, I don't know, or laying the groundwork for potential summer activity, that he wants further recruits, he wants to keep improving the squad, as I'm sure Arsenal do. So he's got to say something in these news conferences.
Yeah, well, I think he even confirmed that they might even do Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's been training with them.
Did he confirm that? Have you relayed that properly?
No, I think I have. I think he said we will look at all options, or something along those lines.
You have misled our audiences there. I do not expect Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain to be signing for Arsenal before the deadline. If he's a free agent, he
you're
could sign for Arsenal after the deadline.
Of course he can.
And I don't expect him to be signing for Arsenal.
Stop killing dreams.
Sorry.
Stop killing dreams. A quick word about Tonali, because it's interesting what David said. Is he an agitator for a move, or is
Not really. I mean,
not
Sandro,
right now, but maybe like by the summer, or do you think he wants to take that next step? Or
I mean, Sandro has spoken publicly about his own circumstances. For example, at AC Milan, in the weeks leading up to his move to Newcastle, where when he joined AC Milan, it's the club that he'd always supported, anticipated that he would stay his entire career there, and an offer came in from Newcastle, which the club accepted, and he moved because it was, I think, impressed upon him that this would be a good move for you. It's good money for the club you support, so go. I think Sandro is very realistic about what it means to be a football player in 2026, which is, clubs can pull the rug from under you and sell you either if you want to stay at the club or not. And so I think he's got a very a rational perspective on these things.
well, he also knows how fragile a career can be, considering his own situation not that long ago as well. So
yes, but it's an interesting one with him because I think he has enjoyed his time in Newcastle. He's just become a father, and I know he likes some of the Indian restaurants in up on the Toon. But I mean, he has been pretty honest in recent media engagements, both with the national team and I think even in the mix zone with Newcastle, to say that you can't say for sure that you'll be at a club forever. As David said regarding price for Sandro Tonali, he's in his prime. He's shown he is an elite player in the Premier League. I think Paul Scholes, no less, said he was his favourite midfield player to watch in the Premier League. Newcastle are owned by the Saudi public investment firm. It's a club that's in the Champions League, so it's a club that has kind of the PSR problems that it had. They've kind of rectified those, so they're not in a position of weakness in any way when it comes to selling the player and needing to sell the player. But it's interesting. I think were Sandro Tonali to look at pastures new, let's say, his agent has another midfielder quite like him called Davide Fratesi, who he could say, well, Newcastle, look, if Sandro wants to move, I can solve this. Davide Fratesi is not playing a lot at Inter. He's an Italy international, scores a lot of goals from midfield. I've got, I can fix this for you.
I'm your man.
So, it's in some respects there's this, but of course it will depend on what Newcastle and the player wants in the summer.
okay, we'll get there, won't we?
Yeah,
we'll get there in the summer.
There'll be another transfer window for David to be on his phone about.
Absolutely. Let's deal with some Liverpool news, because lots of people asking in the comments about Liverpool. And David, Liverpool, they're signing Jeremy Jacquet from Rennes. But that's more of as we were talking about, a move for the summer. And it's been interesting. We can pull apart a little bit about Liverpool's moves, and we'll bring Mark Gay into the conversation as well. He's not here. We can maybe you can
JJ is transformed into Mark Gay.
I can do that.
Yeah, that would be fine. Mark, come in.
Dan,
tell us first of all about Jeremy Jacquet and that move and the thinking behind it, and it's all sort of going swimmingly, is it?
Yeah, as far as we know, he was due to arrive in the northwest this morning, and dramatic deadline day scenes of jets being tracked on social media and live 24-hour television stations. So he was scheduled to undergo his medical. With the deal not coming into force until the summer of 2026, which means it's a pre-agreement now. I don't know if it's as time sensitive to get absolutely everything done by the 7 p.m. deadline. I'm not aware of the technicalities, but the last I heard, it was progressing as planned, which would see Liverpool sign him for £55 million plus £5 million in add-ons on a contract of 5 years from the summer, plus an option to extend by 12 months. And clearly he picked Liverpool, and so did Rennes. When they had an ongoing situation with Chelsea, there was interest from others, reportedly Bayern Munich. There would have been many more clubs in the mix for him. I know of top Premier League clubs and on the continent who adore his potential. Yes, he's young, but he's regarded as being at the vanguard of young players and certainly young centre-halves. I've had huge conversations with people in the industry about whether players of this stage of their career should be moving to that level immediately. You remember with somebody like Saliba, he went on 3 loans before breaking through at Arsenal. Should they be going to an intermediary step before going on to a Liverpool, Manchester United in the case of Lenny Yoro?
It's like with Leslie Ugachukwu. He was from Rennes, went to Chelsea, then it was moved around.
And especially with centre halves, though, they tend to develop a bit later. And yet the expectation is of these big clubs to hit the ground running immediately, and there's so much pressure. The problem is the price that these clubs are demanding, and especially in the case of Rennes, who I think is one of the richest men on the planet, can only be paid by your top Premier League clubs, top clubs on the continent. It was interesting with Dean Huijsen. He actually did take the step from Juventus to Bournemouth and then on to Real Madrid, and that seems to be smoother. But expectations are high, and what Liverpool see here is him being a key part of this new team, which saw Arne Slot back spectacularly in the last market with Isak obviously at the front of the attack, but also Ekitike was core to that, Kerkez, Frimpong, and obviously Florian Wirtz. And this is, we're hearing Michael Edwards flexing his muscles of Chief Executive of Football for Fenway Sports Group at the top of the tree, and Richard Hughes as Sporting Director. And it would appear that they're backing Arne Slot despite the scrutiny and speculation about his position. They're putting their eggs in his basket, and they'll hope that he will be the right man to lead them in the long term, despite what opinions are out there. And it's not been an ideal season for Liverpool, especially after winning the title, but they did win the title. There was huge change, trauma last summer, and it appears that change will continue. There'll be big questions in the summer about the futures of, say, Van Dijk, 12 months to go, Gomez, 12 months to go, Salah, 12 months to go, and there's been this uncertainty over his situation. And I think that's absolutely fascinating, and it will be really intriguing to see how Jeremy Jacquet fits into their plans, and they'll be working right now to get that deal signed, sealed and delivered.
Is it Jacquet rather than Jacquet?
I've been told Jacquet, I could be wrong.
Oh no, that's good. Okay, fine. No, I was just checking if you knew that now on. That's good.
If I'm wrong, I may grab my coat or jacket and I'll be out of here.
Très bien. Well done. Have you got a little... Because there's lots of people... Abdullah asked an initial question about are Liverpool going to get their defender signing over the line. Have you got a little bit of information that you can give? A little bit more than what David has given us
on the
already?
actual transfer? Absolutely not. But on what he does as a player,
yes.
I can help you with that.
Good.
Well, he's a centre back. And one of the things that's quite hard to analyse centre backs is how could you do it? Like, you can watch wingers and strikers, and you can watch certain actions they do, and you can make judgments quite quickly, I think, and you have to watch the rest to learn them. I think with Jacquet or Jacquet. I am confused.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what to do now.
Just call him Full Metal.
Like
Jurgen Klopp's heavy metal sort of segue.
That could be exactly it.
Just stick with one and go for it.
Well, at the moment he plays as the central centre back for Rennes, and they play a 3 at the back at the moment. Most of the season, I think. And very good at winning his aerial duels. He's tall. He's 6'2". He plays like he's taller, if that makes sense. He's got presence. Like, he's a big lad. He's very strong. Wins his battles, but what
is that like when it's cold, but it feels like?
Yes.
It's -2, but it feels like -5.
Exactly, that's what that means on your phone. It's just like when it says that there's 70% rain, it means that the rain is opaque.
Let's not digress, come on, carry on, it's my fault.
So, opaque, Jacquet.
Imagine if his name is Jacquet.
Jacquet, Jeremy Jacquet. Well, one of the things I noticed from watching him just today, actually, is the way he reads the play, and that's the thing. So when you're younger, you'd think your technical skills should be good, but the reading of the play comes with experience. That's why people always think that footballers get better as they get older, because they get experience. And I think there's a game played against PSG, they got absolutely done. I think it was like 5-0 or something like that. But the way he's reading where strikers are trying to press him and where he's meant to be shown and how he can use his body to deceive them and turn and pass, it looks like a good level player. And I think these kinds of signings, it's very rare you've got access to a player like Jacquet or Jacquet at the age he is. Right? So everyone praises teams like, Bournemouth is a good example, or Brighton, because they buy those kinds of players and then they can develop them with relatively little pressure, and everyone praises their purchasing. But all the clubs know about these players, they all know about them. And so why don't you just miss out the middleman, go straight for him now? You might have to pay a slight premium. It's probably less than you pay if they go to Bournemouth or Brighton first for a couple of years. So you get them in, you're going to get another year out of Van Dijk. So if you have him playing certain games, maybe certain other ones, you've got Leone, who should be back by injury, hopefully with the summer as well. So then you've got another young defender who I really like the look of too. So then you're trying to build your squad. You don't want to put blocks in the pathway to them getting the first team. And although you probably play in the Premier League right now, you bring him in the summer, then you have access to a player who could turn out to be one of the big world stars. Like Van Dijk, when he was at Celtic, you could tell straight away he was a superstar, like within an instant. But he went through Southampton first, and then by the time he goes to Liverpool, it's quite far along in his development. So could have done it earlier and gone early, and maybe got exactly the same benefit out of him. And the coaches are good at Arsenal, so
but you think
Liverpool? Yeah, thank you. Go on, James.
I think it's interesting what David was saying about Michael Edwards and the kind of conception of this Liverpool team, because we've all been focusing on the now, the week to week at Liverpool, and this quote-unquote disappointing title defence. But this is very much a Liverpool squad that is being built, yes, to compete now, but also really to compete in the future.
Yeah.
And the money that they're intending to spend on Jacquet, you think of the money that they invested in Giovanni Leone as well in the summer. That's two centre-backs who, Leone was a teenager, I think still is a teenager. They've decided to invest 80, 90 million in two very young, up-and-coming centre-backs who can replace, as David said, Van Dijk contracts, Gomez. You've got Konate. There's been a lot of criticism of Konate's performances and speculation about his own future. Liverpool have kind of moved early to secure two of the very best young centre-backs in European football. I know from speaking to various people in Italian football that there are two players that a lot of people think are nailed on future very, very good Italian players, and they are Giovanni Leone and Pio Esposito, the striker who plays for Inter. And Liverpool moved before Juventus or an Inter, who would historically have got Leone early, would have been able to get those. So, I think as much as people have focused on the figure that Liverpool have spent and the performances so far and think, what are these guys playing at? I think they have a very trained eye on the long game here. And I think there's no doubting that the players that they've signed are very talented.
I just wanted to check in with you on an Italian transfer that is going through, or a departure from Italy, which is Ademola Lookman leaving Atalanta, going to Atletico Madrid. Did that come as a surprise?
No.
It won't be a huge dent for Atalanta because he's not necessarily been scoring as much as he has been in the last 3 seasons.
It's. I mean, Lookman,
is it just sort of a natural next step for him, or
a natural next step that I think has come maybe 18 months later than anticipated? I don't think the last 18 months have been in Atalanta's favour or Lookman's favour. He was the star of the Europa League final where he scored a hat-trick. Atalanta's first ever European trophy. Italy's first win in that competition since Parma in 1999. He was named African Player of the Year on the back of that success in that final, but also the season he had. And I think there was always the expectation that he would then trade up. He would. There was. I remember not last summer, but the summer before last. There was kind of soft inquiry from PSG. There had been some interest, I think, but very background interest rather than hard interest from Arsenal. I think he felt his time had come to move on. But things didn't always align. So last summer, I think he was looking for a move, and Inter came in for him. And I think the agreement that Adam Leventhal had with Atalanta was, yes, we have promised to let you go to a quote-unquote bigger club, but that cannot be a domestic rival. And I don't think that went down particularly well with Adam Leventhal. And Atalanta didn't need to sell, they'd qualified for the Champions League, and crucially they'd just sold the capocannoniere in Serie A, Mateta to the Saudi Pro League, and they got 70 million for him. So they decided to keep Lookman, and really I wouldn't say it's been a kind of unhappy marriage of convenience over the last 6 months, but I think both now recognise that maybe they should have just cut ties in the summer. But Lookman has got the big move. He's gone to Atletico Madrid. I think his boyhood dream was maybe to play for Barcelona, but still to go to Atletico and play in that stadium, which is one of the best new stadiums in Europe, is a progression for him. I think it's interesting. I mean, training was very hard under Gianpiero Gasperini. He clearly likes training hard because he's got Diego Simeone as his new coach.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, the deal I think is 35 million plus 5 million add-ons. I think Atalanta, perhaps in hindsight, could have got more in the summer. Certainly, I think Inter were prepared to offer more, but it's come to pass that he has left 6 months later.
Just one important interjection that we need to just settle. And I will come back to another question about Italy and the other big 5 leagues. Mad Vice, thank you very much, has got in touch and said, I'm French. You don't pronounce the T on Jacquet.
I also Googled this a minute ago. It says Jacquet.
Yeah, Jacquet.
Yeah.
As a avid Francophile, I bow to
it's fine.
our learned...
Mad Vice.
That can't be his name either.
Mad Vice.
Oh, sorry.
Mad Vice.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you were relating to his
Yeah.
current mental state on this deadline day. Jacquet, I'll give you that. Any relation to Aimé, the French
Apparently
World
not.
Cup winning?
I asked this
coach?
today. No.
Yeah.
No.
And we're targeting a different audience here. 1998 and one era.
Let's carry on. The question I wanted to ask to you, James, interestingly, because you have been saying, AC Milan were going to sign Mateta for 30 odd million euros. Adam Leventhal is now being sold to a La Liga side. It's interesting. Chris Weatherspoon, who's our dedicated finance writer at the Athletic,
The bookkeeper,
as he's known. We shouldn't actually use his real name. He's just known as the bookkeeper.
It sounds really Dungeons and Dragons.
It does.
I like it.
The
bookkeeper.
He's coming. 300. This was slightly earlier, so just excuse our maths for a minute. But £322 million spent by Premier League teams. 303 million spent by the other 4 big leagues combined. So it does. Yes, we've got a little bit of money flowing here and there, but the Premier League is still where it's at. They are still the sort of behemoth of European football.
Without a doubt, and I think this summer was when the new international rights broadcast deal came into effect, which is one of the reasons why you saw this, even by Premier League standards, exponential growth in spending. And in other leagues, I mean, we can talk about Jacquet again. David mentioned that the only clubs that can afford talents like Jacquet are here in the Premier League, your elite Premier League clubs. But the reality is that Liga teams are more minded to sell them to those clubs because not only because there was a historic Premier League premium, but because Liga clubs right now don't really have other revenue streams because their TV deal, has been a real mess, with partners pulling out, TV deals collapsing. And so even by the standards of where Liga sits with the Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, Liga does not have the TV money that 3 others of its peers has. And so, the other teams, I saw the Bundesliga have announced record revenues, but they are still significantly below those of the Premier League, as we've seen TV deals for those other leagues kind of flatline or grow at only very small percentage points.
David, I hate to interrupt. If anyone's watching this, I don't know if we can show the whole studio right now. When you see David on his phone, he's not being intensely rude like a sort of a teenager around the dinner table.
We're talking about you, actually.
Yeah, get off your phone. Get off your phone. He's working hard to get the transfer news. But I just wanted to flag to you, if you are in the middle of a message, I want to ask you about Tottenham in a minute. Is that okay?
I'm always listening.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We can multitask.
Because there are a lot of people asking about Tottenham. We are Tottenham has asked. There's someone else that asked about Tottenham. Loads of people are asking about Tottenham. Doing anything? Is anything happening? Graham Price asks, is anything happening?
Well, I was at Tottenham yesterday. I don't think they need a great deal if they're eking out draws with Manchester City. Their supporters do not share that view.
No.
They wanted a lot of business today. They've brought in Conor Gallagher, a good signing this January. Sousa is one for the future. I thought he would initially go out on loan, certainly if they had landed Robertson, a story we broke on The Athletic a couple of weeks ago. But that wasn't achievable, so maybe Sousa stays and is integrated. Udogie was starting at the weekend, and Ben Davies is out needing surgery. He has had surgery. In terms of other things, they did want to do at the start of the window a left-sided attacker. That's why they were so keen on Antoine Semenyo. Previously, it was Savinho at Manchester City, and they would have looked at some more. But I think after the Gallagher outlay, they would have only gone to the extent it would take if they were absolutely convinced and the right opportunities arose, and that clearly hasn't happened. There's obviously been the timely return of Dominic Solanke to form and fitness, and they'll hope he keeps that. And so I didn't know of them seriously looking into anything for today. And, there was great expectation with the changes at sort of ownership and hierarchy level in September that this would be a massive window. The reality is it's not a massive window for anybody, and it's a very difficult one, and there's a high risk that you can do bad business at this point in time. I think more the judgment will have to come in the summer when this regime are really put to the test. Obviously, Fabio Paratici's departure as co-sporting director didn't help. He will now depart once this window is closed for Fiorentina. It was quite strange timing that it was announced during the window that he was still working in. And so they'll have a new setup again come the summer market. I think, but I don't know if we've reported this on The Athletic yet, that Wilson, the young Heart striker that Arsenal had been looking at as a potential deadline day deal, maybe it's a North London tug of war, because we've heard whispers that Tottenham might be more likely, because Arsenal, I think they bought somebody back from loan, which would have been the place while they were waiting for Hearts to decide what they wanted to do, and that would have been Wilson's place in the under-21s. This isn't a senior signing. And now Wilson seems to be a possibility. Arsenal have already bought somebody back, and how do you shift people around? And in the meantime, the word in the office is that Tottenham are in the environment. I don't know if that's confirmed, so apologies, editors, if I've just ruined the story that we're about to publish.
Just pause for 2 seconds. Someone has suggested that David is it Crash Royale? It is Crash Royale. You're not playing Crash Royale. Is it Clash or Crash?
I'm more a Crash Bandicoot era, but people watching this won't know.
Just get back to your phone for a minute, but you mentioned James Wilson. I'm just hearing on the line, we've got our Scottish correspondent here, JJ Bull. Why is everyone making a fuss over this kid? Played for Scotland?
I think he's the youngest ever cap for Scotland.
Yeah. Is he like a generational talent?
He's thought of really highly, but so I think it was that Ross Wilson who went to Aston Villa and hasn't really managed to go to Rory Wilson. There we go.
Ross Wilson's your compatriot who's a sporting director at
Newcastle.
There we go. Yeah. So Ross Wilson, Ross Wilson maybe. He's highly thought of has been playing for Hearts, hasn't really been getting in the team much. Derek McInnes is going for players who will hopefully get them over the line, get to win the league. A complaint of McInnes in the past has been that he doesn't trust young players enough, but he does when they are ready. Like Lewis Ferguson's a good example at Aberdeen, who then is now performing well. He's at Bologna now. He turned into a very good player.
Captain.
Yeah, captain of Bologna. Pretty cool. And I think with James Wilson, you've seen a player who he's good technically. He drops in, receives the ball, runs in behind, takes up good positions between the goal posts. Just a standard kind of striker, but it's just he needs to get bigger. Basically, he's not going to start for. I'd be very surprised if he were to go and be ready to start for a team like Arsenal just now. It's for the future or for the youth team, something like that.
Under 21, and then maybe.
Yeah, and for his career, it might be good to go somewhere like Arsenal and play with their academies for a few months or whatever. I don't really understand this move personally. It's very odd.
I think what we might be seeing here, without meaning to sort of destroy the romance that people may have attached to transfers like this, clubs like Arsenal are trying to improve their stocks of young players with a view to maybe helping their team at under 21 level or whatever, but also trading at some point. And they've seen the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool and Chelsea, even Tottenham, making an industry out of the academy, and Arsenal haven't done that to such an extent. They've had a good few come through now in terms of Wanyeri, Lewis Skelly, Max Dowman on the way, a couple of others here and there, Marley Salmon being one of them at centre half, but they're not really selling nowhere near the degree that Manchester City, pulling in millions, tens of millions in some cases, for academy departures. And I'm not. I don't know how people have told me today that he's not at the level required, or maybe even the profile that would be an Arsenal player. But it's not to say that he can't help them out and potentially then move on and take another step in his career.
Yeah, that sounds exactly right. And like the players from Scotland tend to be sold, I think, a bit less than what I think their true value maybe is, and that not because I'm just being biased towards the league that I watch an awful lot, but I think you've seen certain transfers in recent years have gone for more than they would. I think some of the ones that Celtic have sold especially, some of the ones Aberdeen have sold, like Calvin Ramsey to Liverpool was the one that was quite a bit of money, and Bojan Majowski went to Girona, I think. So there's been a few that have maybe helped with that. But if you can buy Wilson, I think his contract runs out, according to what I've just read now, runs out in 2027. So if you were able to get him at the end of that or something, or it's going to be cheaper right before it runs out, and you get him for 1 million, anyone who plays in the Premier League at any bit, you give him like one sub-appearance, suddenly it'd be worth 15 or something like that. So it's a very good return on investment. That does make sense.
Post-Brexit Premier League, the clubs are turning for football and financial reasons to Scotland. I think there are reports that Arsenal are signing a boy from St Mirren on this deadline day as well. Ireland they've turned to in recent times. There was quite a high-profile young player that we reported on. And so with the difficulties of obtaining players under the age of 18 from Europe in this new world order that the UK has brought upon itself, the home nations are obviously becoming a more fertile breeding ground for talented young footballers.
Very good.
And
let's not get tangled up in Brexit,
but it's interesting.
And GBE and all that malarkey.
GB News? No.
Let's certainly not get down that avenue. Let's deal with some old players, basically. A lot of people asking, and I'll try and rattle through as many as possible because I suppose technically we're supposed to be finishing now, but we'll kick on a bit. Raheem Sterling, free agent.
Yeah.
Do we know what's happening with him?
No, and that's not one I've had time to check today because of all the on-the-day stuff.
But that can
you're
happen.
Right. Exactly. Your point stands. Raheem Sterling is of an age where he is and a quality and a history that he is likely to have high-level interest from the UK and Europe and further afield. But he's going to need to convince these clubs that he's ready to be awarded a contract and make an impact for them worthy of that.
Are there any Italian clubs buzzing around him?
I don't know.
Is it?
Well, I mean, over the last few weeks, Napoli have been linked with him in the Italian papers, primarily because 3-4-2-1, I'm sure he could do a job as a number 10. There was a rule change where players from Britain are no longer considered non-EU players. So in terms of that being a problem like it was in the past, Italian clubs only have so many non-EU slots, so that's no longer an issue. And Napoli have a lot of injuries. Having said all of that, I think one of the principal stumbling blocks in the past with Sterling has always been his salary, which is not, I think most Premier League salaries for players who've moved
from big gun to big gun,
to big gun are very difficult for Italian clubs to match, particularly now that there isn't the tax break that Italians benefited from when they signed the likes of Fikayo Tomori, Mike Maignan, those players. Players' salaries now are more expensive for Italian clubs than they were a couple of years ago when they could benefit from this tax break.
Yeah, number one would be family, I think, and environment, safety. He's had a couple of bad incidents at his home. He's got a son in the Arsenal academy, and the word was he was always keen to remain in the capital, which would have been maybe a Fulham, a West Ham, a Crystal Palace. It sounds like he would go further afield if the right deal and the right package is there. And I would imagine he would probably amend his salary, because nobody's going to pay him what he was on at Chelsea, given how little he's played, and he's not unwise enough to understand that. So I could see him going further afield, but he will want an environment where he's actually wanted, because that at Arsenal it was a last minute thing, and he ended up barely playing, one goal, and I don't know if Arteta didn't trust him. Maresca clearly didn't trust him, not part of his plans. So he did a couple of seasons of that big contract at Chelsea after signing from Man City, and I think it will be a decision driven by family. Of course the package is important, but actually feeling that he's part of something, and he's now got time to do that. It wouldn't surprise me if he joins a big club, because we know his pedigree and he'll have the motivation to prove it.
Quick fire round.
Yeah, quick being the optimum.
Grady B asks about Harvey Elliott. Any news?
No, it appears that any notion that there would be a move back to Liverpool has not materialised today, and he would appear to be staying at Aston Villa now.
Calvin Phillips is going to Sheffield United.
Done, agreed. He, the last I know, was undergoing his medical, season-long loan, no option to buy. We don't know the salary split, which is obviously a big concern for a club like Sheffield United, and I imagine, speculation here, which we're not meant to venture into, that Manchester City will be taking most of his wages. But my goodness, 30 years old, England international, and was a staple of the team that got to the Euros final, and how he has fallen. He'll just want to be getting some football in his legs, and bless you, JJ.
Well done.
Back to a decent level.
The Yorkshire Pillow is at least back in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a nice
God's
one.
country.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And last question, although you said we shouldn't speculate, I'm just going to ask you to speculate. What else should we be looking out for over the next... it's 2 hours now. Under 2 hours now.
Yeah, let's
Anything
see.
on the horizon?
Well, West Ham have been trying to bolster in defence, which saw them explore various options, including a couple of bids for Taylor Harwood-Bellis at Southampton, the England international, rejected, and Southampton keeping him. And they've turned their gaze to Axel Disasi, another Chelsea outcast of Bomb Squad fame, but infamy. That's not done. He's on a massive salary at Chelsea. Will West Ham want to take that? Does he want to move there? I think he was undergoing a medical, so that's a possibility to keep an eye on. We're scratching now. Crystal Palace. They've had loads of irons in fires today, outside of the stuff we discussed earlier, and in recent days to try and give Oliver Glasner the best possible chance of finishing higher in the Premier League and trying to win the Europa Conference League. Everton, they've been looking to do various bits and bobs. Of course, they got the deal agreed that we broke yesterday for Tyreek George, the excellent England youth international winger stroke striker. That's a loan with an option to buy, and he did his medical today. So there are things going on. it's maybe not as high profile and spectacular as we've been used to on deadline day.
And that's fine.
Okay.
That's absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be blockbuster, does it? It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Deadline days are always interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, James.
Pleasure.
David,
Anytime.
JJ as well. Obviously, we will continue to keep you posted on The Athletic via the live blog, which is there now. You've got various updates on, Mateta, whether Arsenal actively looking at deadline day options still. We'll see if anything comes to fruition. The latest on Tonali, Jeremy Jacquet, of course, as we all now learn after our French lesson here. Jorgen Strand-Larsen, is he going to end up at Crystal Palace from Wolves? We shall see. And much more besides. If you want to listen to something, maybe on your way into work tomorrow or your way home or whatever, we released the Anatomy of a Transfer, Your Questions Answered. So very much on the tip of this live blog that we've, this live stream that we've been on here. I put your questions to people working in the industry during this January transfer window, and we'll put the link to that podcast in the comments down below. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks for all your input over the last hour. And enjoy the rest of deadline day. Take it easy. See you later. Bye-bye.